Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about India's economic growth and development and how women's economic participation can actually support that goal. I want to start firstly by acknowledging our mothers and grandmothers whose hard work made it possible for us all to be here today. I'd also like to pay tribute to our sisters who over the years have fought for the rights that we enjoy today. I'm very proud that my country, New Zealand, is the first country in the world that gained the right for women to vote. And this year we celebrate 125 years since women first gained suffrage. Over the last couple of decades, an impressive 133 million Indians have been pulled out of poverty. That's an achievement that India and the world can all be proud of. But that result could have been even more dramatic if greater numbers of women were contributing to the workforce. It's very important, I think, to start by acknowledging that Indian women work very hard. We know that traditionally they've worked in the home and in agriculture, and they carry huge loads in their families. But since, as of 2012, only 27% of Indian women had a job or were actively looking for one, and that compares with 79% of men. More worryingly, in the last decade or so, over 20 million Indian women have dropped out of the workforce. That's the equivalent of Sri Lanka's population. And it seems that, in part, India's rapid urbanization may have contributed to this result. As women's jobs in the rural areas have been decreasing, not enough rural women have been able to make the transition to working in urban areas. By any measure, this gap is large and worryingly widening. India ranks as 120 amongst 131 countries in female participation rates. And also worryingly, rates of gender-based violence remain unacceptably high here and elsewhere in the region. It's very hard to develop an inclusive and sustainable way when half of the population is not fully participating. India's women contribute 17% of GDP, which is less than half of the global average. If you compare that 17%, in China it's 40%. We believe that India could boost its economic growth rates by at least 1.5 percentage points if only 50% of women joined the workforce. It's not to say that there isn't progress and success. More girls are participating in education than ever before. And for many women, as family incomes have risen, they've been able to leave the workforce. But India must change this direction if, in fact, it's to stay on path to a fully inclusive and developed society, and if it's to reach its full potential. So what will it take to reverse this? Firstly, valuing girls and women is a critical factor in making societies more prosperous. We know that women's economic empowerment is highly connected to poverty reduction because women tend to actually invest their earnings more in their families' development and in their communities. The intergenerational benefits of women working in the workforce are profound. For its part, the World Bank Group ensures that the programs that we support in countries are structured to focus on greater economic participation for women. For example, here in India, one of the iconic things in India, I think, is the mass movements of women who participate in self-help groups. We have invested over $3 billion in the past 15 years to support the state governments in the poorest parts of India to empower rural, poor women through these self-help groups. Through these programs that the state governments have supported, more than 45 million poor women have been able to access skills, markets and business development services. Some of them have gone on to become successful entrepreneurs and have become an inspiration for others. These programs have been evaluated and the evidence clearly shows that these women in the self-help groups experience greater food security for themselves and their families, better access to finance, and higher incomes. Their incomes on average are 25% higher, the household income, through these programs. And many of these women have been empowered to take on leadership roles in their villages and communities. Bravely, they are stopping gender-based violence and open defecation in their villages. Also, the Skill Mission of India, which we are supporting, not only provides women with relevant skills that is sought by employers, but also ensure that training programs are sensitive to their needs. We also are helping through financing safe public transport and flexible schedules and childcare support. In Jharkhand, we are supporting adolescent girls to help them complete their secondary education and providing mentoring services for them to succeed in the job market. However, all these programs and interventions alone are not sufficient. Research shows that even women that have completed skills programs and get jobs still will tend to drop out of the workforce when they have their first child in response to family pressures. Changing the social norms around marriage, work, and household duties has to be an important part of this agenda. We need to spark the interest of young girls in subjects like science and mathematics and convince them that they are just as capable as boys and that they too can build careers in engineering, scientific research, IT, and all the fields that are in demand from prospective employers. We must also raise our sons to respect girls and women and to make it clear that there is a zero tolerance for gender-based violence. In the home, we need to see families supporting their girls as future professionals. Household workload for women and girls is heavy, but these responsibilities can be divided between men and women, and men can do more to support women. It is an opportune time also, I think, to look at the legislation framework and policies that act as deterrents to women entering and staying in the labour market. Fostering the creation of better jobs, providing for childcare and elder care, and ensuring safe mobility to and from work can remove significant structural barriers for women to access employment. Employers need to walk the talk and commit to supporting diversity in the workplace by hiring women and paying them the same wages as they pay for men for the similar jobs. We also need safe public transport and zero tolerance for sexual harassment in the workplace and in the community. The private sector should take a leading role in expanding women's share of employment and firm ownership in emerging industries. We can accelerate progress by working together. Gender-focused planning is more effective when it's incorporated in everything we do. Today, the World Bank thinks about gender-based development in all of the areas that we support in different countries in the world and try to incorporate these into the design of government programs and their implementation. Over the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity here in Mumbai to ride the suburban train system. You haven't lived until you've done this. Here I've had the opportunity to meet a cross-section of Mumbai's working women. Here in Mumbai, more women are working than anywhere else in India. These are in jobs in banking and finance, as well as working in markets and fishing. Each woman I've spoken to her in her own way has been an invaluable part of this great big bustling city and contributing to its dynamism and its vibrancy. The women I've spoken to appreciate that the new trains on the suburban rail system have given them greater speed in getting to work, more comfortable seating and better ventilation. Most importantly, there are women's carriages and women's trains, but they want a lot more to be done to improve their connectivity between their stations and their often distant homes. Recognising these challenges, we are working here with the government of Maharashtra to ensure that the future development of the public transport system in Mumbai addresses even more carefully the gender-based needs at the core of the design. I've also seen a substantial difference in in what a safe working environment can provide for women in Tamil Nadu. There, I've talked with young women who are working in manufacturing and in the garment sector, far from their village homes. They have become the main breadwinners for their often impoverished families. Many girls are now helping their family members with education and other expenses. They've been able to do these jobs because they have been able to live in women's hostels, they've been able to access safe transport, and they've been able to access childcare for their children. These are many examples of the kinds of things that the government is doing to try and turn around the trend that we see. Some of these promising signs are the government's programs for skills development, subsidised loans for businesses led by women, and the recent legislation which doubles maternity leave and requires childcare facilities in companies that employ more than 50 people. If these programs are implemented, then these policies could remove some of the most difficult barriers that women face and offer significant boost to India's economy. But as these examples and anecdotes show, success will hinge on collaboration between all of the stakeholders, ranging from government ministries at all levels, to education providers, to public sector and private sector employers, down to the actions of all of us here. In the end, Indian women will have to play the key role in claiming this space in India's workforce. Personally, I will continue to advocate for them, and I know that you will all join me. Let's all pledge today to increase women's participation in the workforce, and that will help us to realise a higher level of growth and development for India, and an India that is more inclusive and more sustainable. Thank you.